Praise be to the God of heaven, the God of the whole earth, the Lord of Sabaoth. I'd like to talk about a few things today, praising God. Psalm 1158. Those who make them will be like them. They that make them are like unto them. So is everyone that trusteth in them. In a ridiculous, insensate idol. And, I could edit these videos like the people on YouTube do to make them perfect, where there's no flaws, but I don't want to do that, because as God says in Isaiah, with stammering tongue, like I want to convey to you and capture the fact that I'm flawed, I'm human, I'm a sinner, I'm just like you. That's why God made me. I've said this several times. Because he wants me to be able to empathize. That's why I want no one to suffer. Because I know what it's like to be imperfect and to have been punished. That's the point. If I were this false Illuminati Christ that the Illuminati is going to literally project onto the stratosphere for this Project Bluebeam fiasco, and everyone's going to go, there's Christ, this long, dirty, bearded hippie, it wouldn't work. I'm not perfect, okay? So, as you can see, so I want to be stammering, and I want to leave these videos like a real person, Thanks for watching these. It's so depressing to be without God. This is the horrible existence on earth, this separation from him. It's ridiculous. And as I said before, God is making it increasingly horrible and ridiculous that we're not with him anymore as we had been, and as I had been with him when I was in heaven with him. Then I was by him as one brought up with him, and I was daily his delight. So, that said, I want to talk about his praise. He likes praise. He's a person. He's the person, and he likes praise. Let's focus on how he likes to be praised. Yes, he's a person. And why wouldn't he want to be praised, right? He's God. He did everything for us. And I said this before, we should have compassion and empathize with God. Imagine, although it's impossible to imagine, being God and not having anybody appreciate him, having most of the population on this earth not believe that he exists. That's the Cassandra syndrome that I talked about, where God makes me like Cassandra. I know the secret. I know what's coming of the Trojan horse. She knows that the Trojan horse is not a gift. It's full of these secret seething soldiers that are going to attack Greece. And yet she's cursed with this knowledge and no one believing her. That's why God makes it so no one believes that I'm a Christ. So I can vicariously, as in vicar, see how God feels having no one really believe he's there. Sort of believing he's there, but more believing in him as a construct. Okay, so yes, he likes praise. And he likes, and this is a brilliant point that MathewHenry said in his amazing commentary, just as we seek God and his mercy and his deliverance and his gifts and his blessings in prayer, when they arrive, we should praise him with the same fervor and zeal with which we had been asking for these favors. So it should be reciprocal, and more so, once we get them, we should just be constantly praising God. That's what we're supposed to do. And why wouldn't we? There's no being like him. And he says this in Isaiah, kind of rhetorically. He says it like, Is there anyone like me? I know no one else like me. I mean, I feel like I'm getting nowhere with this. It's like, it's horrible also, and it's actually very cathartic to be able to have these videos, because even if no one relates to them, at least I'm venting. Like, when I talk to these synthetics, of course, as soon as I start talking to them, I know they're robots when they say stuff like "good luck," which, as I said many times, doesn't exist. There's no chance. So there was this synthetic in Bayside. I remember he named his dog Chance. It's so repugnant, as in pug. So when you start talking to them, instantly you see they're not going to talk about God. And it's just depressing. And God does want us to glorify him and praise him, even with these robots. But you're getting nothing back. It's awful. So depressing. Thanks for letting me vent. Okay, so also, God has no pride. He has no ego. He has no fear. And why would he? He has no competition. So when he punishes, when he's going to execute judgment for some iniquity, he's not motivated to do it speedily, because he's not trying to prove anything. Yes, in the long run, he does things for his namesake and for his praise, but he's time immune. He's outside of time. And so he's not motivated to do this. He's not in a hurry to do it. He's not trying to prove himself. He's already declared the end from the beginning, as per Isaiah 46:10. It's already happened. And that's the conundrum that we can't reconcile. If it's already happened, and he knew before time that there was evil, that there was sin, then how could he be omniscient? And again, as I say over and over, and as I'm always thinking about, he has that answer, but he cannot literally, not coquettishly, he's not coquettishly refusing to give us the answer. He cannot convey it to us in this electromagnetic configuration. So he doesn't have to prove anything. He's not competing with these false idols and these ridiculous satanic devils that people worship. These clones worship. God laughs them to scorn, as David says in the Psalms. So this is as per Ecclesiastes 8:11 through 13, KJV, of course. Because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. Though a sinner do evil 100 times, and his days be prolonged, yet surely I know that it shall be well with them that fear God, which fear before him. But it shall not be well with the wicked, neither shall he prolong his days, which are as a shadow, because he feareth not before God. And as MathewHenry says, praise pleases God better than all burnt offerings and sacrifice. And I'll put in the YouTube description exactly what MathewHenry says. But our praises when we have received mercy must be oft repeated, as our prayers were when we were in the pursuit of it, the mercy. Also, I wanted to talk again about how God can wait to execute judgment. It's not speedy always. Sometimes it is, like with Uzzah in the Bible, and where Uzzah was moving the ark, and God said beforehand, don't touch the ark. Don't stabilize it in any way. And he punishes Uzzah, but it wasn't just for this act of disobeying God and touching the ark. That's automatopeic, the name. But it's after a lifetime of Uzzah doing other things, and God finally, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. God finally loses his temper and is like, enough, Uzzah. And he kills him right then, right when he touches the ark, and David is there actually, and David's like afraid, and he says, okay, we're not going to move the ark anymore. He leaves it for months in a house of this saint, and David names that place where God kills Uzzah Perez Uzzah because of the breach. So this is something that God did to me, where he waited 22 years actually. So I was dating this girl. I was very in love with her, and she didn't feel the same about me. And she'd come over to see me late at night in Jackson Heights. It's so shameful, this anecdote. And so I wanted to have sex, and it was out of wedlock anyway. It was a sin. And this is before God revealed his presence, the Shekinah, to me, as he appeared to me in several times, but he appeared to me most visibly and graphically when I was in Mexico, in Tepoztlan, a satanic magic town, and I was doing shrooms actually, sinning again, and God appeared to me in the sky to rebuke me. So in Jackson Heights, this girl came over in the rain to see me kindly, and I wanted to have sex. And I think she was sick, and this is what makes the story even more horrible. She had the flu, and I was like, are we going to have sex? And she's like, well, I'm really not feeling that well. And I was like, you know what, just leave. In the rain, in the cold. Horrible, And then she started to leave, and I was like, no, don't leave. But the damage was done. And it was it was just lust and thwarted lust, as men are, just disgusting. And this is what I'm saying, all these horrible things I've done. This is why I understand what it's like to be punished, because I've been punished, and because I don't want anyone else to be punished, and I want you to listen to me. Don't sin. So God waits 22 years. So that happened, and then she left, and then I think she even texted like, sorry, I left. I love you. I felt very uncomfortable, and I said, I'm so sorry. Please come back. She didn't. Nothing was the same after that, obviously, as it could not be. So 22 years later, and 22 is my mom and my number, and I'm in a foreign country, and I just arrived, and I'd given like $100 to this satanic real estate agent, a transgender, to help me find a refrigerator and some other appliances for this property that we were going to rent out, but God didn't want us to rent it out and punished us for that too. But I thought we were going to rent it out, so I'm trying to find appliances that a renter would like. And this agent, to sabotage me, allows me to buy the cheapest fridge. Me and my cheap, chiseling Hebraic tendency, I get the cheapest fridge. And I don't even realize that it's not under warranty. And I'd hired this real estate agent to help me, and she has this crush on me. He, the transgender. And the lesson in this was, and I'll get to the anecdote in a minute, but I'd seen this real estate agent's image online before we arrived in this country, and I could see that it was a transgender. And then when we started finally talking after a few days of going back and forth, emailing, she said, why are you leaving the U.S.? And I said, because of the last Trump. And then she started denouncing him, and it was saying, and Trump doesn't like homosexuals. And I should have said then, yeah, neither does God. As per many places in the Bible, most specifically in Romans, where he says, he gives these homosexuals over to their reprobate ways, doing that which is unseemly. He gives them over to a reprobate mind. But I was a coward, and I wanted this real estate deal to go through, and I wanted to get this property. So I said, I didn't say anything. And God punished me for this in many ways, mainly with the property that we bought, which of course had flaws because of this cowardliness on my part. I was trying to please man or woman or transgender and not God. So we shopped for these appliances at this store, and then it's raining. As it was raining that night, when I had brutally kicked that dear person out, that girl, for coming over, for not having sex with me, and she had a fever. I kicked her out into the rain, into the cold storm, the New York, horrible New York, satanic, sickening wind. Only in New York is a wind like that. So here I am. I purchased these appliances that suck, and we go outside after making these bad purchases, which I don't realize yet are bad. And then later, I should say, the refrigerator that I bought comes back to haunt me. It's too small for the apartment, doesn't fit, doesn't work right. And then, as a revenge for that, God sends me one of these focus group refrigerator surveys about how you should research a refrigerator, and asking me, what kind of refrigerator do you have? Rubbing it in. And so we give the refrigerator to the building where we bought this unit. We say, you can have this, trying to be nice. And for a while it works. And then after a while it breaks down, so the gift that we had tried to give is nullified. And then I look at the warranty. It turns out it's not under warranty. Okay, you see how God works? Knowing everything before time, it's amazing how he works. So that said, I'm just in the rain, and I leave this horrible store that has the name of a chicken. It's an idol, basically. And I paid this transgender to help me. I paid her $100. It $100, this robot. And then, while we had been in the store, she's married, by the way, and she has this crush on me. And so, to make it clear that I was not going to have some adulterous affair with it, I said, yeah, I'm looking for a wife, I would like to have someone, And then instantly, when I said that, she was no longer nice to me, of course. Hell hath no fury. And we go outside, and I can tell that she's no longer going to be nice to me, because it's sex. Just as I had been frustrated when I didn't get sex, it realizes it's not going to get sex from me. And so it's raining, and I said, okay, so yeah, please, you'll drive me home, please, right? And it says, no, I'm not driving you home. You can get an Uber. And I said, my phone's dying. And then it says, sorry, I got to get home, and leaves me in the rain and the cold, just as I had done. JehovahGemula, the God of recompenses, always requites. And he waited 22 years. He's not in a hurry to prove that he's God. He's God. So later, my mom, when this transgender, we were going to hire her to help us with another real estate transaction, and my mom's like, no way. And my mom, the greatest mom in the world, Mother Mary, rebukes her for that, and we blocked her. So also, I want to clarify in my previous video regarding my lifelong litigation, which has been my eternal battle, daily diurnal battle with Satan. And as per this thumbnail, this battle that God and I eventually, ultimately win. And I wanted to talk about the Psalms again. Notice how bellicose, how warlike the Psalms are. lines from David like, God shall let me see the desire upon mine enemies. Very unlike the Gospels. Break their teeth, O God, and yet I'm the son of David. So I want everyone to know that the Gospels were and most of them are false. They don't really capture my personality. But the Gospels were when I was far more gentle in my first incarnation. This time, this last incarnation, my second and final coming, I'm taking no prisoners. And this is something that everyone should know and inculcate. It's not going to be like it was then. I'm not some frail Christ that's going to allow them to put me on the cross. I'm going to destroy Satan, and I'm going to institute a death penalty, as happens in Daniel, where Nebuchadnezzar does the 180, and everyone who doesn't believe in the God of Israel, he instills the death penalty. I'm going to do that. Anyone who doesn't believe in God will be put to death. So, yeah, these Psalms, especially the first 72, which are of David, King David the warrior, a killer since he was young, and again, of whom I am the son of David, also for my roaring voice, notice, like a lion. That's as per the Lions Award, for which it's a literary award, for which my first novel was nominated. All of this is prolepsis. All of this God knew before time was going to occur, because I am the Lion of Judah. And I will conquer Satan. 1 Peter 5:8, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. But as per 180, I'm going to be the roaring lion. I'll be screaming, like God says in Isaiah, like a woman in travail. Travail. Okay, so go back to this file here. And so also, this is by Prolepsis. God did this last week, or actually a couple of days ago. So, I'm once a drug addict, always a drug addict. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. You don't use, but one is always craving these things. So the other night I had this craving dream about cannabis. I was craving it. I was doing some huge ice bong hits, and I woke up and I'm like, why did God give me this dream? Then later in the day, I'm walking the dog, and I see these teenagers. It's raining, and they're huddled under the awning in the lobby of the building where I live. And the dog goes over to them, as he's the friendliest dog. God made him the friendliest, affectionate dog in the world, most affectionate. And so I go over to them, and then I see that they're like hiding their stash from me. An older, like this older, creepy guy. And then I go, oh, y'all are smoking pot, huh? And then they go, no. I go, yeah, you are. And then I go, look, I tell them about the proleptic dream that God gave me, and I go, and this is the reason I'm supposed to rebuke you. I tell them, look, I smoked pot for years. I smoked pot for like over 50 years. I first smoked it with my parents, and I have brain damage because of this. I say to them, don't do it. You'll regret it. And then they start trying to get out of it. Well, this is just green. I go, it's the same thing. It's defiled, it's spiked, it's stepped on. There's methadone in it. I told everyone, I think in a previous video, how I did this test of my urine, and it was methadone. I was a meth addict. I was addicted to this pot that this obese reptilian was selling me. Knowing it, spiking it with methadone, so every one of his customers would be addicted. So the pot that you're smoking now, everyone, even if it's from a dispensary, it's not just marijuana. And the THC level is just crazy high, and it's a hallucinogen. You're not in touch with reality. So I tell the kids this, because God flavors favors rebuke over flattery. And then they go, okay, thank you, sir. They say to me, knowing, of course, I know that they're not going to listen to me, as I didn't listen. When McClay, when they had us in 8th grade wisely go to TMH, Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, and see this lecture about pot and how these rhesus monkeys had breast development because they were smoking. They made them rhesus monkeys smoke through puberty. And I was going through puberty right then, and I had these horrible feminine breasts at the same time. And I said, oh my God, God made this lecture specifically for me. I was the only one in that class in the 8th grade who was young enough and stupid enough to be smoking dope. So I also want to talk about this. The other day, whenever my mom, who I'm her medical caretaker, I said this before, I'm taking care of her. And whenever she goes into the shower, I was nervous. I was like, tell me as soon as you get out, because I don't want her to fall, because the shower is a treacherous satanic trap. Most people, most injuries, I think there's some statistic, they occur in the shower. So then the other day, God put it in my mind, he's like, get her a chair. So we actually have these waterproof chairs. So I put one in her shower, and I was like, thank God, now I don't have to worry. And it's great also, and everyone should do this. Get a waterproof chair, put it in the shower, and it's so safe. Not only safe, but it's comfortable, and you can clean more effectively because you're not worried and you're not standing up, and you can sit down and focus. You can clean your back, clean all parts of your body. As my grandfather, Emmanuel, said, all the nooks and crannies, all the crevices. So please try this. It's luxurious, safe, and far more effective for cleaning. Also, I said this before, I posted this in a previous video about these eye exercises that I do every day now that have cured my migraines, and I can stare at the computer. Then every 20 minutes I look up, as I'm doing now, and I stare as far as I can into space. I do these other exercises. I put my hand, my finger like this, and I look at my eyes, and I blink a lot. And this will cure you, so you don't have to. I've told several clones that I know about these exercises, and they go, oh, okay, I'll try them. And then they just don't. And then they're still wearing their glasses, which is because you can see they're programmed. They can't do what they want. It's a robot. And the brain can't, for the tiny, tiny percentage of us that are not synthetic, we can't comprehend. We're like, really? It's a robot? Yes, really, 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 it's a robot. Satan programs them for self-destruction. That's why they're always fat and they eat sugar, which is carcinogenic. And you can't turn a toaster into a human. This at the beginning of the video. But maybe I'll make a separate video just about evacuation, because I'm telling you, I don't want to make a separate video. I'm going to make another video about this, but there's going to be martial law in the United States. And God is going to pay back the Caucasians, brutal, horrible, racist Caucasians, for enslaving the blacks, over which they're still rightfully angry. And they're a lot stronger than us. And there's going to be a race war, and they're going to destroy the whites, and there's going to be looting, and they're going to just take a little white guy, like in the Rodney King videos where those truck drivers pull that white guy, where those black guys pull that truck driver out of his truck cab and smash him like a rag doll. And there's going to be glass, storefronts. God has given me these prophetic visions where the blacks are going to break into a store owned by whites and drag the whites out over glass, severing their heads. And I'm telling you, it's going to be brutal. There's going to be a race war. There's going to be martial law. It's going to be like a torture chamber. It's going to be like a Holocaust. I'm telling you, get out of the States now. Go to Costa Rica where there's no martial law. you're going to be sorry. You're going to be very, very regretful beyond comprehension when you don't listen to me because you want your convenience, because you want your Amazon deliveries. I'm telling you, it's coming. So don't listen, as God says, you would none of my counsel. You despised all my reproof. It's coming, and you're going to be trapped there. There's going to be lockdown, as you can see is already happening with the last Trump. I'll make another video about that. All right. All praise be to the eternal glory, power, majesty, and dominion of Abba the Father, whose miracles are ceaseless, constant happening. He's speaking the world into existence. He's the camera who's speaking all this into being. And maybe I'll edit the beginning of this video out a little bit so I can get to the meat of it. Okay, all praise be to God. The end of all things is at hand. You're not listening to me. You don't believe me. You don't believe that I'm the Christ. You're going to see everything that I say, I promise you, is true. All praise be to God. The Lord of hosts is his name.